It's all about having the key insights, following the leaders of the crypto industry and background stories on blockchain technology trends to keep you one step ahead. Monty Metzger, CEO of LCX.com, keeps you up to speed with what's moving global crypto markets and gives you the latest insights about LCX's platform and ecosystem. This is LCX Insights Live.
Welcome, we are live again at LCX Insights Live, and I'd like to welcome you to this very special edition. In this live video shows, I'm engaging with the world's top blockchain projects, entrepreneurs, and investors in the crypto and blockchain industry in honest conversations meant to challenge traditional ways of thinking. My name is Monty Metzger. I'm CEO and founder at LCX. LCX is a regulated fintech company that focuses on digital asset trading, compliant token offerings, and tokenization. LCX has received 8 blockchain-related approvals by the Liechtenstein regulator. That's more than any other company in the country. And Liechtenstein is the place for blockchain overall. It is a country next to Switzerland and Austria in the middle of Europe and has received a AAA rating from Standard & Poor's. That's the highest rating as a country can get. Liechtenstein has introduced the most forward-thinking legal framework for cryptocurrencies and blockchain companies, providing legal clarity and security for our users and for our projects we are working with. Before we begin, what's the latest news about LCX in the last couple of days? First of all, yesterday we launched a new token sale which had been going live from Envision. Envision stock is building the Getty images of blockchain, a revolutionary company from Australia, doing the token sale in a fully compliant manner at the LCX token launchpad. And they're launching the VIS token. So the first tranche of the public sale had been set live yesterday, and now thousands of investors are going in. We see tremendous run on it. So very interesting project. Take a look. It's now online. If you go to accounts.lcx.com, you see all the details. Number 2, Timents. Timents.com, big launch Tuesday last week. Now yesterday, another drop of 20 NFTs had been on the platform. All NFTs are already almost sold out. I think there are 4 more which are there with a fixed price sale, and then there are 10 open for auction at the moment at Timents.com. So what is Timents? As you know, it is a tokenized diamond, a one-on-one representative of a real-world diamond in an NFT. And even more importantly, if you have the NFT token, then you get rewards, and you get 1 million TIA token over 1 million minutes. Currently, a TIA token is traded at roughly 30 cents. So it's a tremendous value coming in over the next 2 years for the owners. And then on top of that, for the LCX ecosystem had been big success because you can only buy the Timent NFTs with LCX. By staking some LCX, you get access to this fixed price auctions, fixed price sales, and you can auction with LCX token and buy these NFTs. Why this is exciting? So far, if I look at the vesting smart contract, more than 12 million LCX token had been locked for 1 year. That's more than $1 million worth of LCX token. And the auctions brought in roughly 7,000 in LCX so far. And we have 80 more NFTs to be released in the next coming 3 weeks. So it will be an exciting March, and then going into April, closing the sale of Timents. So if you want to learn more, go to timents.com. But now coming to this show, today's show title is Expanding the Polkadot Ecosystem. And LCX wants to play a tremendous role with that. That's why we announced a collaboration last year. And now today's guest is the head of strategic growth projects at Parity Technologies, and he's leading the development of the ecosystem for Substrate and Polkadot. So please welcome Mr. Eric Wang. Where are you? Here you are. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you again. It's been a little while since we last chatted.
Excellent. So please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what do you do at Parity Technologies.
Yeah, so as Monty mentioned, I'm the head of strategic growth projects at Parity Technologies. At Parity, in case the audience doesn't know, we are one of the main development forces behind the Polkadot ecosystem. Parity's founder is actually Gavin Wood, who also founded the Web3 Foundation as well. So there's kind of very strong ties within from Parity within the Polkadot ecosystem. Now, for myself, I'm essentially in charge of getting very high value strategic projects into the ecosystem that kind of requires some more complex commercial deal making. And LCX was actually one of the projects I was talking to back last year to try to kind of convince them to join the ecosystem. And I'm really glad that everything's gone full circle at this point.
Great. Thanks for letting our community know about this. And of course, we're not stopping there. We want to know, what is Polkadot and how is it helping in solving the problem of interoperability?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Polkadot is a layer 0 blockchain protocol. And by layer 0, we mean that it is this ecosystem where layer 1 blockchains, so independent blockchains, can kind of be built on top of this network. And the big advantage of kind of being built on this layer 0 protocol is that these layer 1 blockchains can then talk to each other, as well as they are secured by one set of validators. So basically, when developers build blockchains, they no longer have to worry about, okay, well, how do I bootstrap my validator set, right? Polkadot basically handles everything for these developers. And kind of the messaging that Polkadot has brought about in these two main kind of, you could say, value adds has really resonated with I would say with developers over time. And as a result, Polkadot's developed quite a large kind of developer community to this date. In fact, a recent report showed that Polkadot actually has the second largest developer community out of all blockchain projects, right behind Ethereum and above Bitcoin and some other projects as well.
Tell us more, like, how big is the developer community? Are there some numbers?
I forgot the exact numbers, but it's definitely somewhere in the 4 digits. So I believe the report calculated the Ethereum developer community at about, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 total developers. Probably it's an underestimate. Same with Polkadot. I think it's probably somewhere in the 1,000 to 2,000 developers range that they calculated. But I think in reality, they only kind of took into account certain verified developers within the ecosystems, but the real number should be probably significantly higher for both ecosystems.
And now, can you explain what's the key purpose behind Polkadot?
Yeah, so the key purpose behind Polkadot, that's actually a really good question. So I would say that the key purpose behind Polkadot was when Polkadot was originally developed. I think part of it stemmed from kind of the understanding and the frustrations that our founder Gavin Wood had with some of the kind of development pace, you could say, that the Ethereum ecosystem had. Essentially at that time, we were trying to figure out how could kind of the main blockchain narrative kind of diverge or kind of evolve a little bit from Ethereum version 1. And we figured that we could develop Polkadot to kind of become a really good kind of scalability solution, essentially, for the entire blockchain ecosystem, so that basically we could kind of change the paradigm a little bit away from kind of having everything being built upon one blockchain to kind of having this multi-chain future where it's a little bit more inclusive, so that basically developers who want to build their own blockchain can also kind of be a part of this big network and be supported by other developers and other blockchains. And as a result, I think we envision a future where as a result of this collective endeavor or cooperation of all these blockchains, the ecosystem becomes more powerful as a result.
Okay, and like building a more powerful ecosystem and with the vision in mind of Polkadot, there are now a couple of organizations, and I think I just want to make it clear for the community. There's Parity Technology, and there's Polkadot, and there's Web3. How does that work? What are the responsibilities? Where's the team? Can you explain?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when Parity was first developed, we actually didn't come up with the idea of Polkadot. So after Gavin wrote the white paper for Polkadot back some years ago, we decided that it was a good idea to start a nonprofit organization, like a foundation that's dedicated to stewarding the Polkadot ecosystem, that would be in charge of Polkadot's fundraise at that time, as well as in the future, if that need ever rises again. And so basically, Web3 Foundation was established. So, I mean, as I mentioned, Web3 Foundation is a nonprofit organization that stewards the Polkadot ecosystem, whereas Parity is a little bit different. Parity is a for-profit company that essentially has significant financial and you could say political stake in the Polkadot ecosystem. And as a result, we're like our developers and our team is heavily incentivized, you could say, to make sure that Polkadot flourishes in that sense. And Polkadot is essentially the product that Parity Technologies is developing. And it's not just Parity developing it, of course. There's a ton of developers in the world that are kind of making Polkadot what it is today.
And how big is the team, the core team driving it at the moment?
Yeah, so the Parity core team right now is about 200 people, and Web3 Foundation is about 40 or 50 people. So when I talk to the guys at Web3 Foundation, now we do talk fairly often, even though we're two separate organizations. The idea is for the Web3 Foundation to kind of become to be a relatively small organization that kind of only focuses on the purpose of really just make sure that the Polkadot ecosystem is flourishing to some extent. Whereas I think Parity, as well as a host of other organizations, are doing most of the heavy lifting forward from a technical standpoint.
And now there are a few expressions and activities going around which the community needs to understand. So what is Motion 158 and what are these parachain auctions? Can you explain this in detail?
Yeah, so the blockchains that I mentioned, these blockchains that are on top of this layer 0 ecosystem we call Polkadot are called parachains. And in order for a blockchain to become a parachain, as opposed to just being an independent blockchain, they need to go through something called a Polkadot slot auction. So basically, this parachain needs to compete against other parachains in order to win that particular blockchain slot. Now, as of a few months ago, Polkadot has begun its official slot auction process, and we have a number of blockchains already onboarded as parachains. So I believe right now we have 10 parachains that are live in the ecosystem, and every week or so we're adding more parachains. Now, this brings me to Motion 158, which is this motion that sets a schedule for parachain auctions for the next year. So basically, every 7 blockchains, so there will be auction periods consisting of 7 blockchains that are onboarded at once, essentially. And that will essentially start after a week or two from now. And so that cadence will kind of be maintained for the rest of the year following, going forward, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. So basically, it's the timing is being set, and now there's an application process going on, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And to give a little bit more idea on how this auction process works, essentially for parachains to compete to win the slot auction, they essentially need to raise a certain amount of DOT or contribute a certain amount of DOT themselves. And DOT is the native token of Polkadot, right? In order to kind of outbid their opponent, you could say. And if they outbid their opponent, they win that particular slot auction in that particular period.
Okay, yeah, exciting. I think DOT also became a key, coin or token in the ecosystem. Just looking up, so where do you rank currently? At place 11 globally as of CoinGecko as of today, with a market cap of more than $20 billion. That's quite incredible on what you've built up there, and there seems to be also long-term excitement and traction. Another key topic which we now seen in the news is that now your founder Evan Wood donated 5 million DOT for Ukraine. Can you tell us the background story about this?
Yeah, actually, I personally don't know too much behind the background story there. So I probably wouldn't be the best person to ask about that. But I think internally we're very proud that Gavin has kind of stood up for Gavin, as well as a ton of other, you could say, influencers within the blockchain space have kind of stood up for what's happening in the world and put their money where their mouth is, in a sense. And I'm also glad, of course, that I think we're all internally glad that Ukraine has decided to accept DOT donations as a whole. So we hope that besides what Gav has donated, that more people who might support the cause might choose to donate DOT as well.
Okay, exciting. Yeah, it's good to do something good in these challenging times. I just pick another question here from the community about Polkadot stacking. So can you throw some light on the Polkadot stacking with Parity technology?
Yeah, so basically, one of the kind of value propositions that we've brought forth to own DOT is essentially that we believe that a lot of the DOT tokens will be staked in our ecosystem or locked for various activities. So for example, you could do what we call just staking, which is basically you stake to a validator, right? What you do is you stake your tokens to nominate a validator in the Polkadot network, right? For them to kind of become a validator, right? And then you stake that token over a certain period of time. And then you, as the person who stakes, get rewards. So your token is locked for a period of time. And there's also kind of other mechanisms when people refer to staking per se, that lock up DOT. So for example, participating in a parachain slot auction, your DOT will be locked for anywhere from a few months to 2 years, basically, depending on how long that parachain slot is. And we envision that something like over 10% of all DOT will be locked in that kind of in that as well. So 20 to 30% in staking, another 10% in crowd loans and in Polkadot slot auctions, and then a bunch of other DOT would be kind of staked in various other activities that various parachains kind of come up with in the ecosystem.
And now, like looking at our own partnership or collaboration, which we announced in September last year, I think we learned about, like, first of all, LCX wanted to find out what we could do together. Then we had intense talks about how a collaboration could look like and what could be the guidance Parity technology could provide. And as a result, we started working on this. And with that, I just wanted to share the announcement which we have back then put online. So just highlighting a few things. As a whole, LCX had the goal to advance parachain technology with technical guidance from Parity technologies. And there are two particular areas. So one is that we have published the Liechtenstein protocol as a new standard for security tokens as a whole, for the tokenization of assets, for the future of financial products on chain. So all digitalized financial assets or tokenized, like real world assets, like tokenized diamonds, for example, which are classified as securities. So that's something which we are working on with our R&D team to actually bring this security token standard on Polkadot as well. The Liechtenstein protocol is blockchain agnostic. So it first started out with a structure for Ethereum, and now we're bringing it over to Polkadot. So that's one aspect. The other thing is we've launched the Fire Salamander, which is our DeFi product, which is a powerful DEX aggregator similar to 1inch, where you can always check the best price and then execute across different DEXs. And for this, we are experimenting with implementing a whole parachain and bringing this DEX aggregator to the next level. And I think that's an exciting collaboration. And maybe you can also explain a little bit about the background, and the community wants to know how this collaboration will grow in the future.
Yeah, that's thanks for introducing our collaboration here, Monty. So at that time, we were really excited to have an opportunity to work with the LCX team as a whole, and we've maintained pretty solid communication throughout. So we thought that both the products that LCX was bringing forth are pretty interesting to be a part of in the Polkadot ecosystem. From a security token standpoint, there actually currently is no native security token platform currently on Polkadot. So actually having a security token standard implemented on Polkadot opens doors for security tokens to kind of thrive in the Polkadot ecosystem in the future. So we were definitely excited about that. Mm-hmm. And in terms of having a good DEX aggregator in the ecosystem, now Polkadot's a little bit early because we just launched a bunch of parachains just launched in the ecosystem, right? But it's definitely something that beyond stuff like borrowing, lending, and beyond stuff like DEX is just starting to pop up. Having DEX aggregator is an extremely useful tool for the ecosystem. And in the future, what we envision is that we would kind of continue providing, and we have already been providing technical support essentially on behalf of Parity to kind of ensure that the LCX team is able to kind of implement their token standard as well as their DEX aggregator within the Polkadot ecosystem. And something we're currently discussing with them is kind of making sure that their timelines are currently matching up to actually potentially get a parachain slot, right? So we're just kind of make sure that we obviously can't guarantee that they can get any parachain slot or anything like that, but we can kind of help them on the technology side to ensure that they're technically ready for that step.
Exciting, yeah. That's something we are looking forward to, and of course, security tokens for us, it's really a key part of the vision of LCX, and where we see the future of bringing the overall blockchain industry to the next level by tokenizing everything. So every financial asset will be brought on chain, and it's just a logical step, because if you look at the current markets, they are so segregated. There's so many barriers, like how to buy Australian stock of a company or real estate or something like that. It's so fragmented. And that's something where with the first step of digital money, digitalized dollar or digitalized euro will be on chain. We now see it with in China and central bank digital currency being introduced over there. But we like our vision is much broader on this. How do you see the future of security tokens on Polkadot, and what are kind of the future potentials for the ecosystem of Polkadot as a whole?
Yeah, so I think that the idea of tokenizing securities and commodities is quite an interesting topic, I would say. I would say that it's a little bit unfortunate that the idea of security tokens hasn't really taken off too much just yet. I think part of it's because of regulatory concerns that dealing with kind of various regulators in various countries kind of launch these things, as well as trying to find the proper market fit and the proper security, I guess, to be tokenized. But I think due to, for example, LCX's, I guess, the licenses that LCX has, I think maybe that gives LCX certain advantages to some extent, right? And so I think that starting with a project like LCX, as well as the token standard that LCX is putting forth, I hope that more projects in the future will kind of put forth additional additional kind of parachain projects or projects on top of parachains that utilize various ways to kind of build security tokens, whether they're implementing LCX's token standards or implementing some other way to kind of issue security tokens. And I think Polkadot is also a pretty beneficial environment as a whole to issue security tokens just because of the interoperability aspect. So security tokens that might live on one chain could then interact with various things on other blockchains, even if it's outside of Polkadot. So for example, a security token issued through the Polkadot ecosystem can then interact with various, I guess, DeFi protocols and whatnot in the Ethereum space, for example, which kind of gives a lot more financial instruments in this case for security tokens to be worked with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the emergence of the key infrastructure at the moment. For us, it's really a long-term vision, which we are always in investing since start of LCX. But as you said, there's no current like large market at the moment. If you look at the top 100 coins, it's rather a meme coin or it's something sustainable like a layer one instrument like Polkadot, which is globally on 11 at the moment. So looking at the future of tokenized assets, there are different varieties. Now with Timens, it's actually not classified as a security. It is only ownership rights, one-on-one ownership rights, which are enforceable due to the regulatory framework we are leveraging in Liechtenstein. So you own the real-world diamond. But so this is something which gives us more flexibility in terms of how this can be traded, how it can be distributed, because it's not classified as a digital security. So I think these hybrid models are very interesting at the moment to get faster growth. And at the same time, like as regulation catches up, there are huge opportunities. The community also asked, what would you see like, or what could be the outcome or the future between the LCX and Polkadot collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the future of that collaboration, I mean, the first thing that I want to see is Parity kind of helping LCX from a technical perspective, and also maybe guiding LCX essentially through the Polkadot ecosystem to give LCX some best practices, for example, to consider on launching their products on the Polkadot ecosystem. And I think once these projects are launched on the Polkadot ecosystem, what LCX will find is that there will be a ton of other projects within the Polkadot ecosystem that might want to work with you guys to kind of create all of these kinds of projects that will synergize with the LCX ecosystem, right? So I think as Parity, like representing part of Parity, I think we like to stay relatively, you could say relatively hands-off in terms of being particularly handsy towards particular projects to ensure their success, just because we want to ensure that our ecosystem can kind of get together to ensure other project success and kind of find collaborations in their own ways as well.
Yeah. And I think that the technology you are building in the key infrastructure as a layer 0 and the parachains are incredibly helpful. Everybody hates to pay all these high gas fees on Ethereum, and the additional functionality you're offering is, I think, mind-boggling and can really enable a lot of new functionalities there. And in particular for LCX and Parity technologies, when we started talking about the collaboration, I just wanted to emphasize it's a commitment from both sides for the long term. So we've started it in September, now it's March. There's not much we can announce or show right now, but it's a long-term commitment where we invest time, money, resources from both sides to bring something up, which is really creating a business model and some use cases which are outstanding. And in particular, LCX had been always been referred to the Goldman Sachs of crypto. We are enabling the launches of different projects. So we don't want to issue our own security tokens on parachains or on Polkadot network, but rather enable, due to our legal framework and the platform we've built, to make it possible within the Polkadot ecosystem as well. When we talk about the Polkadot ecosystem, how is it? Is there anything planned in the DEX landscape and decentralized exchanges? What's the plan there and outlook if you look at the Polkadot ecosystem?
Yeah, that's a really great. That's a really great question. So we have a number of DEXs within the Polkadot ecosystem, and generally speaking, these DEXs will be building on top of particular parachains. So, for example, on Akala, we have their native Akala DEX. On Moonbeam, there's a bunch of DEXs that are, you could say, ported over from Ethereum or also natively on the Moonbeam ecosystem, as well as on other parachains. We're beginning to see the formation of DEXs on major smart contracts supporting parachains within the Polkadot ecosystem. Now, in terms of the DEX development, what we'll probably see is that these DEXs will probably gain liquidity that's relatively isolated within their various parachains. And I think that could be a pretty good thing. The good thing, because users then of different parachains can kind of hop between different parachains, experience different DEXs, and kind of do the yield farming or other shenanigans that they normally do with DEXs, I guess, to maximize their yields and whatnot, right? And this is also saying that we obviously wouldn't endorse any particular DEX for that matter, right? But right now we probably have easily a dozen DEXs across all the parachains that are being developed. And I think as Polkadot becomes a little bit more mature and these DEXs become a little bit more, you could say, full of liquidity, these DEXs will also start kind of interoperating with other DEXs, so that I think you'll see liquidity pools starting to combine, and as well as these parachains interacting a little bit more, which will kind of, which I think would be, in this case, a potentially interesting step from a product perspective for the LCX's DEX aggregator to step in.
I'm just picking another question here from the community, here from Kyle, who asked, Eric, what securities or assets are you most excited to see tokenized on DOT?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of commodities that actually could be pretty interesting to be tokenized on the Polkadot ecosystem. Like, for example, actually, just personal opinion, I think diamonds is actually pretty interesting thing to tokenize. A bunch of commodities that might not be able to trade hands particularly easy, like oil and all of those kinds of things in certain kind of regulatory environments, I think could also benefit from, to a large extent, from having a decentralized platform. And on the security side, I think definitely a lot of real estate and a lot of kind of other types of companies, I would say, that traditionally would not have the liquidity that it would like, or kind of the regulatory, you could say, maneuverability that it would like. I think would probably be some good early candidates to tokenize within the Polkadot ecosystem. But I would also like to disclaim that I haven't thought about this question too much. And this is just a personal opinion, of course.
Okay. And now talking about Polkadot and Substrate, can you give us an update on the development and status?
Yeah. I mentioned this, I alluded to this a little bit, but right now, I think it's a really exciting time for the Polkadot ecosystem, just because Polkadot parachains are finally launched and are finally fully functional. Now, however, that doesn't mean everything is working 100%, right? So right now, I think in the very near term, we're probably going to want to see improvements in performance across different parachains and across the Polkadot ecosystem as a whole, is one thing that we'll probably see in the near future. And another thing is having more powerful message passing between different parachains. So right now, the ability for different parachains at this moment to talk to each other is a little bit limited on the Polkadot mainnet, but we're making rapid improvements on that point to kind of make that better in the very near future. In the longer term, I think we'll see features such as parathreads being implemented. Parathreads are essentially like they're essentially very similar to parachains, but instead of having a guaranteed slot within the Polkadot ecosystem, they essentially pay fees per transaction to be or per block to be kind of included within the Polkadot layer 0 ecosystem. Whereas a parachain essentially has all of their fees guaranteed from winning a saw auction. So basically, they don't have to pay fees per transaction or anything like that. And in the long term, what we're really excited about, like I think looking up into 2023 and beyond, is the development of what we call Polkadot 2.0, which essentially takes all of the current features that Polkadot has and essentially takes scalability up orders of magnitude, I would say, because there will just be significantly more parachains that are going to be available in the ecosystem.
Okay, that exactly brings me to the key question here around the roadmap of Polkadot. What's on the agenda of 2022?
Yeah, so right now on the agenda of 2022, I think our primary objective right now, as I think somewhat mentioned before, is essentially to make sure that all of these parachains are working fully functional, they're highly performant, right, and that they are talking to each other fine, right? I think if we achieve all of these things in 2022, that would be great. I think Parity likes to underpromise and overdeliver, so we don't really kind of give, as opposed to other projects, very specific timelines as to when things will be completed. For us, basically, we like to tell people when it's done, but we can definitely tell people about the progress of things, right? But I definitely envision that 2022 will implement many of these things that I talked about to kind of make Polkadot a better environment for developers and end users to kind of use.
And now, how to make it a better environment? Like, what do you do to build this ecosystem? I mean, your title is also strategic growth. So, how do you achieve that personally? What's the roadmap there in terms of growth?
Yeah, so right now, I think when we think of growth, we think of it in kind of two ways. We think of inbound and outbound, right? So with inbound, we kind of look at, well, what's kind of the highest value in terms of signaling to other kind of ecosystems or other builders that, hey, these projects are building in the Polkadot ecosystem, and these projects are kind of doing all of these cool things I would want to build as well. And in terms of outbound, we kind of think about, hey, so like, what kind of infrastructure components Polkadot has already that has been built or is maybe lacking a little bit. And then we might, as Parity, reach out to particular potential projects and then try to kind of convince them to join. So right now, for example, Polkadot's a very developer-friendly kind of environment to be in. However, because of Polkadot still being relatively early after its launch, I would say that there's still some UI UX improvements for end users that could be improved upon. So one thing that we're really heavily focusing on right now is, for example, things such as a really retail user-friendly or a bunch of retail user-friendly wallets, for example, so that end users can then interact with the Polkadot ecosystem a lot easier than before.
And I mean, talking about this growth, there's a lot of talk about like this product market fit, which Ethereum had with all the ICOs or like still dominating. So how do you want to structure, or which markets do you target? Is it really decentralized finance or other areas you're focusing on?
Yeah, I think Polkadot likes to stay relatively, you could say, use case agnostic in this sense. We historically have, and I think competing for particular use cases is something that's more reserved for layer 1 blockchain ecosystems per se. So for example, somebody like Solana or something like Ethereum, right, might be specifically tailored for certain use cases, right? Whereas I think Polkadot just really provides like one level deeper of an environment for these blockchains to then talk to each other and give these security guarantees to these parachains. So although we kind of want, so we're definitely really heavily focused on things such as DAOs, NFTs, and DeFi from a parity perspective. But I don't think we're gonna bet on one particular vertical to kind of become the dominant vertical of Polkadot anytime soon.
Okay. Also, I think the strategic move to create Kusama and then Polkadot and running them side by side with the two networks was a smart move. Now I heard that Vitalik also said that would be something Ethereum would have needed or might be launching or something. How do you see the two networks interact and how it could collaborate down the road, like Polkadot and Kusama?
Yeah, I think for the end user, I think the end user could oftentimes be easily confused that there's literally two different blockchains that are seemingly very similar. So Kusama and Polkadot. The way we would like to pitch it, I would say, is that Kusama is what we call canary network for Polkadot. So basically, one major feature that Kusama has is that Kusama is unaudited and Kusama makes changes very quickly to its code base, quicker than Polkadot. So projects that might want a more of a testnet environment, but might want to deploy quicker and kind of experiment with things that actually has financial consequence to kind of test out their hypotheses in a little bit more of a real world environment, would want to kind of use Kusama, I would say, first before implementing anything on Polkadot. Now, I think because of the you could say the ethos that Kusama has, it's also developed its own community, which is a little bit separate from the Polkadot community. And we're beginning to see, or we have been for a little while, seeing some projects that are actually only on Kusama. Like their end goal is just to deploy on Kusama. And these are various projects such as various NFT projects and a bunch of other things that believe that the ethos of Kusama might fit their needs a little bit better, or that maybe they feel like it might be a little bit too tedious to get a Polkadot parachain, and that getting a Kusama parachain slot is actually a little bit easier in comparison.
And so what are your expectations also in terms of the ecosystem? So what's the potential which we see now in the next coming months?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a really good time for the Polkadot ecosystem. For a little while, I think people outside were saying that, hey, there's not too much activity going on within Polkadot. What's happening? Like there's a lot of empty promises and no fulfillments, right? But it's exciting because we're beginning to see our promises actually being fulfilled. And now that these parachains are building their own ecosystems, I think we're going to see a large explosion of activity within these parachains. One really easy way to enter the Polkadot ecosystem is through parachains that support EVM, just because projects that are currently building on top of various layer 1 blockchain ecosystems that support EVM can then easily migrate to the Polkadot ecosystem, right? So we're gonna see like a huge explosion on that front, and there's gonna definitely be a large increase in number of projects and announcements that are gonna come up in the very near future. That kind of shows that Polkadot's a really good environment for not just developers but also end users, because it has just a lot of traction overall.
And talking about traction, I do see there are a lot of new startups being emerged, like smart developers creating smart tools or new infrastructure elements. But also in the B2B space, like large corporates are very interested. I read the news about this Deutsche Telekom buying some DOT and getting engaged there. Can you tell us more about B2B partners like this?
Yeah, so one thing that B2B partners are really interested in is we have this SDK framework for developing blockchains. So when we came up with Polkadot, we asked ourselves like, hey, how are people actually going to build these parachains on top of Polkadot, right? It's not like we would rather not have them not build everything from scratch, right? So we developed this framework called Substrate, which essentially allows you to build a blockchain to any kind of blockchain you desire. Now, a lot of these enterprises are fascinated by this particular feature because it allows them to build a blockchain that's could be not a parachain, but bridged to Polkadot, right? So for some various blockchain of various enterprises, they might not want to kind of be directly part of a public blockchain. One additional thing though, like on the public blockchain side, is that some enterprises I think are beginning to see that maybe they can build on a public blockchain, so that by adding various privacy features to their particular product, they can interact with the blockchain ecosystem at large by connecting to Polkadot, right? Because Polkadot provides interoperability to a bunch of other blockchains, so that these enterprises see that as a valuable kind of, you could say, additional to kind of their arsenal. And as a result, they've been wanting to deploy more and more in the Polkadot ecosystem, whether it's as an independent blockchain or directly connected to Polkadot.
Now, like talking about the outlook and vision, I think you briefly mentioned it, but maybe you can summarize it in a few sentences again. What is Polkadot 2.0?
Yeah, so honestly, Polkadot 2.0 is it's not exactly clear exactly what it will be, but essentially Polkadot 2.0 will take everything that Polkadot 1.0 has and make it much more scalable and simply better, I would say, in many fronts, right? There's going to be probably certain features of interoperability, message passing, etc., that might be enhanced in Polkadot 2.0. But I would say primarily, like what interests me in particular is the idea that you can scale to an almost infinitely large number of parachains within the ecosystem, so that Polkadot really kind of serves to be a really future-proof solution for blockchain builders.
And I think this future-proof solution for blockchain builders, how you name it, is also a key topic of your upcoming event. I think Decoded 2022 as a kind of big event. One of your colleagues also reached out to ask for a topic, how we can contribute. So LCX, I think we could perfectly talk about the future of tokenization and these things around security token standards. So that's something which we gave to your colleague already. But can you tell us more about the Decoded 2022? What you plan in terms of growth, developer interaction, and what is expected to happen there? And when will it be?
Yeah, I actually personally don't remember the exact date of Decoded. I think it's somewhere around June, if I remember correctly. But Polkadot Decoded there's been a few Polkadot Decodeds already in the past, and Polkadot Decoded has been extremely successful for us. I believe at one point it was one of the most viewed kind of conferences within the crypto space for the year of 2020 or 2021. I kind of forgot when it was, which particular Polkadot Decoded that was. But Polkadot Decoded is essentially a conference for more, I guess, less crypto native, or people who aren't maybe as deeply into the crypto industry, or maybe people who aren't as technical, to learn more about Polkadot and the Polkadot ecosystem. So you're going to see a lot of Polkadot ecosystem projects talk about what they're building within Polkadot, as well as there's going to be more kind of general introductions of Polkadot and its technology and its promises, you could say, to a more general audience. So it's not going to be that much of a developer-focused conference at all. It's just going to be something that makes Polkadot a little bit more accessible to everyone.
Exciting. Yeah. So I just pulled up the dates. It will be June 29, 30, Polkadot Decoded 2022. This time it will be Berlin, Mexico City, New York, and Shanghai in different locations and hybrid models. So you can be there. And obviously Berlin is a key hotspot, isn't it? So Parity Tech has a strong team in Berlin. Correct?
Yeah, we have a lot of developers in Berlin. It's our historical headquarters, you could say, and we also have offices in the UK, so primarily in London, and also we just started a new office in Lisbon, and many Parity employees actually moved to Lisbon. So I would say right now it's about half almost between the Lisbon office and the Berlin office.
Okay, that's interesting. So I think a lot of the Berlin community now moved in warmer fields as they realized with COVID, you work from anywhere anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But also picking this ecosystem, that's interesting how it develops. But then, like, the Web3 Foundation is in Zug, correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. So in the heart of Crypto Valley, that's where we also have an office, and basically just an hour drive from Liechtenstein, where LCX has the name from, with the L in our name. So kind of proud headquarter over there. I think Liechtenstein is really creating a framework which gives legal clarity for these new token projects, and obviously there's a big interest in new projects launching on the Polkadot ecosystem right away. So that's something which we'd like to provide. Now, like, looking at the time, I think we can do 1-2 more questions. So if the community wants to bring their questions, you can comment in YouTube. I'm skipping the ones which are not relevant and just picking the best ones. So I do see some comments around LCX exchange, good volume, everything is picking up. We do see here LCX is dot and some rockets around. So that's all very exciting. If you want to learn more about our progress, you can always visit lcx.com/insights for the announcement around the collaboration and what we're doing. Again, as said, collaboration with Parity technology is something which is a long-term commitment, and where we update the community regularly to show what we've been building, and obviously contributing to Decoded if it makes sense, or in other events that you're planning. Eric, any final closing words from your side?
Not too much to add. I just wanted to say thanks everyone for showing up to this talk. Really appreciate it, and I'm excited for the days ahead for the Polkadot ecosystem, as well as for LCX to deploy its products within Polkadot.
Exciting. Eric, thanks for making time. We closed it up. Thanks, community, for watching, and we'll keep you posted on the Polkadot ecosystem and how we can expand it together. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Bye.